Today we inadvertently got some great news about the full release of Grounded. In a short video from game director Adam Brennicky celebrating the milestone of surpassing 10 million players, he also said this.
We're working towards our 1.0 final release of Grounded, which will come out later this year.
I honestly was expecting full release early in 2023, but I'm happy to hear we'll be seeing it sooner. So now that we know the game is planned to be released this year, what can we expect in the updates between now and then? So between now and full release, I think we're probably going to get 2 updates, and then the full release update will be the 3rd update. So I'm expecting to get probably an update every 3 months between now and full release. I'm expecting an update probably around May, early May, with a public test server maybe in late April, and then followed by an update, a public test server in late July with the update in August, and then lastly, public test server probably in late October with the full update around November. So in those updates, I think there's a couple things that are obviously going to happen. This entire top area of the map has to be updated. Now, they could either go up here with this area that's next to the shed or down here next. I don't think they're going to do all this in one fell swoop because that's a lot of area to update. And they did say the updates are going to be lighter going forward in terms of content. But I do think that most likely, at least in my opinion, the next update will cover the upper pond here as well as this grass area down here. The reason for that was because in the public test server, this area up here was drained of water. It had a lot of terraforming. At one point, there was actually a hole in it where you could fall down into it and it just fell into the void and then died. But I'm thinking that that's probably going to somehow maybe lead to the buried lab that's over here. So if you're not aware, there is actually a lab over here on this wall. So we'll enter photo mode real quick because it's going to be easier to get down there. And we will go down here and it is right here. So here's the lab. This is the berry monster lab. And the reason it's called that is because you used to be able to glitch through it. And you could actually see there was it looked like one of the berries from the hedge in there, but it had a mouth on it. So it looked like a monster. This has not been accessible. I think this has been in the game since launch and we've never been able to get inside of it. So I think most likely if this area gets updated, that'll be accessible at that point, which would add a new lab at that point. And I think this area up here obviously will be updated at the same time. So that's what I'm expecting in the next update. And also I would think I'm really expecting armor upgrades because they gave us weapon upgrades. So armor upgrades are logical. I think it would make sense for them to drop them in the next update. That way they could see how they work, see how players are using them, and then kind of the same thing they do with weapon upgrades, tweak them in the update after it where they make balance changes to it. So I do expect armor upgrades in the next update. And I think there's a possibility we get the Ant Queen. The Ant Queen has been listed on the feature board forever, not in the game yet, but there were ant pheromones in the previous public test server in creative mode. In the the hot and hazy update that were taken out and they were never added. So they're in the game files right now, but they have not been added. Now where she gets added, I'm not sure. Maybe she gets added in the red anthill. I think the red anthill would either be likely or possibly adding her up to the upper area of the map here, maybe in a new anthill, something like that. I don't think the black anthill will make sense, although maybe they'll add one there too because we already have the assistant manager there, so that would add like a second boss there. So I think more likely than not either be in the red anthill or maybe up here in this new area. So I think that stuff is likely to be in May. And then the August update, I think what they would do is do the rest of the upper yard up here. So in the May update, this area down here, upper koi pond, this little grass area here that's got nothing. Perhaps they even do the upper area up here, so this is all connected. And then they finish up here. Or they could reverse these two things. I'm not sure. But in any case, the upper area here I think is most likely going to have either a second garden or another hedge. Because there was actually, I think it was a hedge shown. I cannot find the footage of it, but I remember seeing it in a video somewhere, or maybe it was maybe the dev live stream, they showed something where they were showing something and there looked like there was a hedge up here that's not currently in the game. So I do think there's either going to be a hedge, a bush, or some kind of garden up here. And if they add that there, I think that would make sense to be where they would add the mantis. So we do know there's mantis parts in the game files. The devs have not confirmed whether they're coming to the game or not. A lot of work's been put out into them. So I do think they're going to come at some point. And I think more likely than not, they would come when this part of the map gets updated because mantises do like to live near bushes, hedges, stuff like that. At least that's where when I did some research online and for me seeing them in real life, because I do have them around my house where I lived growing up, I do remember always seeing them in bushes or near bushes because they blend in with them real well. So I think that would make most sense for adding it there. And then aside from that, there are some other labs around the map, but I think there's maybe a possibility that the lab that's down here gets connected to the pond up here. And then, of course, we have the lab down here. So maybe these get updated in one of those updates. Maybe they get held for later on. One thing I didn't mention was I think there's a chance they're going to add a waterfall between the upper pond and the lower pond. There is a crack in the rocks here, although they could just have it like flow through it or something like that. I think that would be pretty cool. But it's having a waterfall. So those are the things I think are going to get added in the updates in May and August. And then that will leave us with the final update, which will be November, which will be the full release. And I think what will be likely there will be to have access to the rest of the caves that are blocked So there's a cave. There's a couple caves up here. There's one in the caverns. There's one by the little field station right here that are blocked by rocks. There's a cave beneath the sandcastle that's blocked. There's also rocks inside the black anthill. There might be some in the red anthill as well that just look like they could just be naturally there, or they could be blocking access to another area. So I think those would, if we're ever going to get access to them, that will happen in the 1.0 update. And then possibly the deck gets updated up here. So the deck does have construction tape on it, and I think that might be the last place that they update. This might be the final part of the story somewhere up here. They would update the deck, although there's been no confirmation of that. It's obvious that these parts of the map are going to get updated at some point, but the deck is just kind of up in the air. Although with the construction tape, I think it's likely that they might do something up here, and that would be the 1.0 release. And then the one thing that we haven't talked about is weather. I think weather would most likely be added either in August or November. I don't think they would add that next. I think they're going to probably save that. If they actually do add weather, it's on the feature board, which we're going to look at in just a second, but it's sitting in gray, so it's not currently being worked on. And they have talked about adding weather, so I think they're going to have weather in some way. And I think if they do that, they're going to hold off on that till the end, till the yard's completely finished. And then they can figure out how weather's going to interact with it and possibly have to do some tweaking with terraforming and stuff like that. Like, if, for example, if they had rain or maybe the sprinklers turn on, stuff like that. Or maybe there's seasonal where there's snow or something like that. That's all going to have to be worked out. That would probably make sense to test at the very end. So I think we'll see weather pretty much at the end. So those are the things I think are going to happen between now and 1.0. But what I want to do is I'm going to hop over to the feature board real quick and take a look at the things on there, because they did say they're going to keep developing after 1.0. And there's a couple things on there that I think, while I'd love to see some of these things by the end of the year, I think they're more likely than not going to get pushed. They'll be pushed after full release, and there'll be things that get added as, I don't know if it's DLC or they just add them on as just updates periodically after full release. So this is the Grounded feature board over on the Obsidian website. You can find it at grounded.obsidian.net. Click on the feature board, you're going to find this. And the things that are in blue are in progress. So we got quality of life improvements, inventory management. These are things we already know about. Then we got the story, additional crafting stations. Of course, if they add armor upgrades, there's probably going to be an additional crafting station, unless we just use the smithing station. That wouldn't really make sense. Burgle quest, additional weapon types. Those are to be expected. As they add new bugs, there's probably going to be new weapons and armor. And then the things in gray are things that are planned. So we already talked about some of these, like the ant pheromone, the ant queen. They've constantly adding higher tier stuff, or they have the last couple updates. And then down here, if we scroll down, we got weather, which I mentioned, always adding additional creatures and crafting materials. But the things I think that are most likely going to come after 1.0 are these base blueprint things. The reason for that is I think they just want to get the story finished and then allow us to do what we want after that. So base blueprints, power buildings, defenses, framework for player-generated gameplay, higher tier structures, decorations. Those are things I think would be more likely to come after 1.0, although I'd be really happy if they came sooner rather than later, for a couple of reasons. I think the defenses is leaning towards they're going to bring back base raids. So I'm probably going to do a whole video on base raids and why I think they're going to come back in the near future. But I do think base raids are going to come back, although I think they're more likely to come after 1.0, just because I think they want the game to get squared away and maybe have base raids either be a separate game mode or perhaps just be a optional, or maybe they're part of like higher difficulties, but not like the casual difficulties, because a lot of people don't want to do that. They just want to play the game and do what they want to do and not have to worry about their bases getting destroyed. And then, of course, the framework for player-generated gameplay, that to me sounds like it's going to be like a open-ended creative mode where we get assets. Hopefully we get access to the assets from the game, and kind of like how Fortnite did, where they basically just said, here's a map, here's access to the assets from Battle Royale, Unsave the World, and you can just build whatever you want. So people build like speed death runs, mazes, all kinds of different kind of games you can create. So I think that would be cool if they do something like that, because that would definitely extend the life of the game far beyond the story. Because right now, the game's going to be story driven. It's probably going to take like 20 to 30 hours to complete the story if you just play through it, especially for those of us that have been playing it all the way through this point. We're probably going to be able to blow through it in much faster time. But for someone who's never played it, if they pick it up upon full release, I'm expecting probably around 25, 30 hours if they don't look up any videos, don't look up any guides, and just play through it blindly. But then after that, the average player is just going to move on to another game, and you're only going to have the diehard hardcore players that have probably been playing it through all the way through early access who are going to stick with it. And allowing for player-generated gameplay, and especially if they bring base raids or stuff like that, that'll give me reason to continue playing it after 1.0. I'm sure it'll give some of you reason to keep playing after 1.0. And then the one other thing I haven't talked about is going to be dedicated servers. I think dedicated servers are probably going to come after 1.0. This is something that's not necessarily needed for the game. It will be a nice to have, because it'll let us possibly get better connections, not have to worry about it, not have to worry about having like the host having like a super internet connection. Although it doesn't really matter, because right now I have a great internet connection. Even when my kids play multiplayer with me in the same house on Xbox, where they're wired to the same network, they're just lagging all over the place and desyncing. When I played multiplayer with original Ryan, he was the host and I was not. We both have super fast internet. I was desyncing, had 2 bars of ping, and like half the time it was just like not even playable, where my shots weren't registering, my hits weren't registering, so it was all over the place. So they got to fix multiplayer. Dedicated servers would help that, but I think dedicated servers are probably at the bottom of their checklist, and I think they're more likely to come after 1.0. And of course, to my knowledge, dedicated servers, I could be wrong, but I believe dedicated servers are only going to be available for PC. So you'd have to be on PC to create it. I don't believe there's dedicated servers on console, although maybe they'll set up some kind of way of doing that. And like I said, I've never done it on a console before. I've done it on PC. It may be possible on console, but I think it's more likely to be a PC feature, but hopefully it'll be available to everyone so that you guys can create your own worlds, have your friends jump in whenever they want to, even if you're not online, and it'll be up 24/7. That'd be pretty cool. That's my thoughts on what to expect for the rest of the year and beyond regarding Grounded. The news that the game is being planned to be fully released this year is both surprising and exciting, and I can't wait to see what the devs have in store for us. Let me know in the comments if you were expecting to be able to play the full game this year. Thank you for watching, and thank you to the Overseer91, Grey Knight, Baz Channel, and all my other channel members who help make videos like this possible. You can become a channel member right now by clicking the join card on the screen. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.